Hello everyone, this is Jason from Primetime Aquatics, and in this video I want to bring to you one of the coolest, tiniest freshwater fish out there, and that is Heterandria formosa, the Florida least killifish. This is a great fish for small tanks. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. So what we're looking at here is a 2.3 gallon long, and this is housing our Heterandria formosa, otherwise known as the Florida least killi or the least killifish. These are fantastic inhabitants, and I absolutely love this setup. So let's talk a little bit about these fish. As the name would imply, they are found in the southeast of the United States, namely Florida and Georgia, North Carolina, Louisiana, and as far west as Texas. Usually they are found in relatively slow moving waters and slow moving streams, and so that's something you're going to want to keep in mind as you keep these fish. You're probably going to want to keep the flow down in your tank. The water parameters can be pretty diverse depending on where they're found, anywhere from soft fresh water up to brackish water, and so that's something we'll keep in mind as we talk about the water parameters. The differences between males and females can be fairly extreme, at least in terms of size. These are some of the smallest fish that you will find, at least in terms of tropical freshwater fish. The males max out somewhere around 3/4 of an inch. The females are going to get a little bit larger, maybe 1.25 inches. But as you can see, these are absolutely tiny fish. The coloration is very similar. I wouldn't necessarily call these fish colorful. They're mostly tan and they've got a black stripe. The females are going to have black spots on both their dorsal and anal fins, and it's a way to differentiate them besides the size. And of course, a lot of times the females are going to have a more rounded appearance to them, especially if they are holding fry. Their temperament, they are relatively docile. In fact, I would call them a very non-aggressive fish. Even here, you'll see them chase each other around from time to time, but no damage is done. So when we're looking at tank mates, then we have to be very, very careful. In this tank, I really prefer just having this group of least killifish together. I really find their community dynamics very, very interesting. The other inhabitant that we have in this tank, and you will see it throughout, is that mystery snail. It was very small when we put it in there. It is growing. We'll probably pull that out of there and put another smaller mystery snail in there, but that is a relatively safe inhabitant. Other tank mates to consider, you could potentially try adult shrimp, although I think adult Heterandria formosa might eat baby shrimplets. You're taking a chance there with the adult shrimp. Other types of inhabitants, you could be looking at small rasboras, maybe something like the Chile or Galaxy rasbora, the lamp-eye rasbora, so something very similar in size. I think cory cats for the most part would leave these fish alone. Bristlenose plecos might be a good option. Small tetras might be an option, but they will probably eat any of the fry that are produced by these fish. But you could be looking at things like neons and ember tetras, so we really want to stay on the smaller side. A pygmy sunfish might be an option, and even sparkling gouramis in the right setup might be something to consider. But again, when we're looking at breeding, a lot of these fish would eat the relatively small least killifish fry. Now, water parameters. The nice thing is with the temperature, you've got a pretty wide range. You could go anywhere from around room temperature, which may be 70 degrees Fahrenheit, up to around 78 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And we have these fish right now right around 78 to 80. And as you can see, they are happy and healthy and breeding and doing really well. The pH, I mentioned this before, but you're probably looking at somewhere around neutral to about an 8.0. Now we in our fish room are around an 8.2, and they're doing great. The water hardness, they can go anywhere from relatively moderately hard water, around 160 parts, 150 parts per million, but they've been found in waters as hard as 350 parts per million. So if you're looking for a hard water fish, that might be an option for you. Water quality, we always want to keep the water quality up, which means no ammonia, no nitrite, and we try to limit our nitrates in our fish room to 20 parts per million or less, and that seems to work out fairly well. Now, what do we feed them? This is a small fish, and because of that, it's going to present some challenges. So flakes they've been eating, we feed our fish primarily North Fin foods, and we crush the flakes up and they eat it without any issues, as well as the micro pellets. They could potentially eat frozen brine shrimp, but you're really looking at the adults eating that. If you wanted to try to feed bloodworms, you'd have to chop them up because bloodworms in some cases are as large as the adults. What our fish really love are live baby brine shrimp. And the adults, the juveniles, and the fry all love live baby brine. So that is something that this tank gets twice a day. It is certainly not required. Again, crushed flakes will work very, very well, but these fish absolutely love the live baby brine, and they get super excited when we feed it. Tank size. Now, what we're looking at here, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is a 2.3 gallon long aquarium. I would say anything over 2 gallons is probably going to be appropriate. So this is a great fish for that nano tank, with the understanding that the smaller the tank, the harder it's going to be to maintain consistent water parameters. So if you are new to fish keeping, my recommendation would be try to keep the largest tank that you can reasonably maintain and afford. But for people who are experienced, a 2 gallon tank or above is certainly going to be appropriate for these fish. And in fact, one of the things I recommend is actually staying on the smaller side with these fish, maybe a 10 gallon, 15 at the most. One of the issues that we had when we've kept these fish in the past is we had a standard 20 gallon tank, and it was very difficult to see these fish, and they just kind of blended in, and we actually didn't really see them all that much in that 20 gallon tank. So a smaller tank might be a better option for these fish if you really want to see them. Now, in terms of what we've done with the decor, you can see throughout the video, these fish have been really, really well, done really well with the decor that we have, and that is rocks and wood and live plants, and giving them a place to hide. Of course, you don't have to have live plants. If you want to just go with the fake plants, that's fine. But you can see that they really interact with a lot of the decorations that we have in the tank, and I think that's key to helping them feel comfortable. You will see the smaller juveniles going in and out of the plants, and it's really, not only is it interesting to look at, but I think, like I said, it provides them with an element of safety. The other thing that we've done in this tank that we're doing more of, I really like, and that is you can see the light is really only predominant on one side of the tank, and as we move to the other side of the tank, it gets a little bit darker, and that provides the fish an area where they can go where it's well lit. But if they don't want to be in that particular area, they can go in these areas in the tank that are a little bit darker, and I think it helps the fish feel more confident and more secure. Now, when it comes to breeding these fish, it's very, very easy. You need a male, you need a female. These are live bearers, and so they belong to the same group of fish where the endlers and the guppies and the mollies and the platies. The males have a gonopodium, which they insert into the female, and the female will generally store somewhere between 20 to 40 offspring. And you can see some of these females have a very, very round belly, but what I find so interesting about them is they don't release all 40 fry or 20 fry at the same time. They release the fry over a period of days or weeks, and they always seem to be, at least in our tank, at least having some stage of fry in their belly. So it's really kind of interesting. Now, once the fry are out there, they're small, but they are also larger than you would expect for an adult fish that grows to such a tiny size. The fry, I have seen them picking on the live baby brine. They will also pick on the sponge filter, as you can see throughout the video. They will pick at the live plants. So it's really kind of nice if you're thinking about breeding these fish. If you have an established tank, that might be a better option for them, because at least the fry can pick on the bacteria and the small organisms that are in that tank. But crushed flake, live baby brine will certainly be appropriate to feed the fish. The adults eat it, as do the fry. Something else to consider, we already mentioned when it comes to the flow, we want to keep that relatively low. You can see we have a sponge filter here that is providing a little bit of flow on the left-hand side, not as much on the right-hand side. If you were doing a hang-on-the-back filter, therefore, it might be a really big advantage to have a hang-on-back filter that has an adjustable flow that will allow you to really tune in that flow for the fish that you are keeping, and it will definitely pay dividends in terms of their overall activities and attitudes. The substrate that we're using here is a very coarse sand. It's a sand that we really like to use, and it really, the substrate really doesn't have a big impact on the fish. One other thing that's interesting about the fry is they actually spend a little bit more time towards the bottom of the tank than towards the top. And a lot of times if you're used to breeding guppies or endlers or mollies, they'll spend more time at the top. Not quite the case with these fish, where you will find them interacting with the plants and down in the rocks and actually more towards the bottom of the tank. So top cover may not be quite as important with these live bears compared to some of the others. These are great fish. Yes, the color is a little bit muted, but when you really look at their personality and their size and the fact that they can go in smaller tanks, it's definitely worth trying. If you see them, I would definitely recommend try them out, see if you like them. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.